Welcome to Blonde Cards and Crafts. Let's make something together. Hello crafters and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be crafting using the Adore Him. This is a special release kit by Love from Lizi that's available at the moment, and I'll leave links to everything down below. So for the first card we're going to do, this is a pop-up frame card. I love making these. It's like a pop-up frame on the front of the card, but it folds flat to go into an envelope. And I recently seen a video with Jennifer Maguire where she had a split one. Now I know she used specialized die and products, but with mine all we need is a circle die and that's it. So for the base I'm going to use a card. I like you know, my pop-ups etc that are on the front to be on a card. That way you can open it and write your message rather than just writing it on the back. So you don't need this. If you don't want to use a card base, then you just need a piece of card measuring 5 by 7, but I'm going to use a card base. So this piece measures 10 by 7 and it's scored at 5 if you want to make one yourself. Inside this we're going to look at first, I'm going to use a mat and layer. So I have a blue piece of cardstock here. This is from my stash. It measures 4 3/4 by 6 3/4. On top of that I'm going to put a white piece. This measures 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. I've stamped two things here on this using the stamp set. This is the Joy to the World, the Lord has come, this stamp here, and then this image here in grey. I'm going to be having this image in a piece of ephemera on the front, so I wanted to emulate it inside. So that's the inside of our card base. On top then we want some other things. So I've taken a piece of pattern paper from the kit. Now this piece measures, it is 5 by 6, and the reason I've cut it at 5 by 6 is the pattern paper is 6 inches by 6, and because my card is 5 by 7 I need something at the bottom. So for that I've taken a piece of this pattern paper. I've fussy cut around the top and I'm going to put this along the bottom. I've also, you can see, embellished this using some of the star peel-offs that come in the kit, and I've also taken 2 inks from my stash. The inks I've used are Nocturne and Twilight. The Nocturne is a very dark blue, nearly a black, and I've ink blended around the edge, and then I've ink blended with the Nocturne, which is a very dark navy. So I have this kind of halo in the middle, so I wanted it to represent a night sky, and I think that will work for that. And then we have our little town down below. So now on top of this we're going to need 2 pieces. These 2 pieces, when they're folded, will sit one here and one here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a circle die and we're going to die cut out just here. And then that piece, then I've taken a piece of ephemera. I've added a little ring on it as well as some ribbon. This is from a previous Love from Lizi kit, and this is going to hang like so. So it'll be a decoration, and I think that the recipient, I'm going to stick it inside so the recipient will be able to take it off and hang it on their tree, and I'll make a note inside. And then on the back I can put to whomever, Christmas love or whatever from Simone, Mike and family. So it'll be a little decoration for their tree. Okay, so I've kind of got ahead of myself. I just wanted you to have an idea of where I'm going with this card. So I'm going to take away the die and we're going to talk about these 2 pieces next. So I have 2 pieces of cardstock here, and I have scored these at 1/2 inch, 1 inch and 1 1/2. And then I've scored it at 6 1/2, 7 and 7 1/2. These 2 pieces measure 8 by 2 1/2. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a circular die and I'm going to pop it onto my die cut. Now what I want to make sure is I have an even amount here on either side. So I'll just take my ruler and I'll measure across to make sure I have an even amount. So I'm going to pop that up there. So that's about even there. And then I have it down as much as I want it. So I want it to come down about an inch. So that's down an inch, and then I'll just measure. So once I have it where I want my die, so it's centered evenly there and down as much as I want from the top, I'll take a little piece of washi tape and I'll add that on there. What I'll do is I'll die cut that out, and once I have this die cut out, I can then bring it over to this one. I can sit it on top, and then I can put it through again, and I know then the two pieces will be die cut out the exact same. So I'm going to die cut this one out first. So that's die cut out there. Now I can take this off here, and then I can pop this on to this one, and then I can sit my die on. It's like a jigsaw piece. Your die should sit in, it should lock in. I can add that down, and then I can bring the two over and die cut the two out. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to cover my piece of cardstock with a piece of printer paper, just to keep everything nice and tidy. Now, and you can see there now we have our two openings the same. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to redo those score lines again because they've flattened out, but there's shadow of them there, so I'll be able to redo them. Now once I have that done, then I can fold these. So I want this one nearest this die cut edge to be a mountain. Then we're going to do a valley and then a mountain. And we'll do the same on this side. So we'll have a mountain, a valley, and a mountain. And once we have that done, we can do that on this piece. So these two pieces now will sit on the front of our card. So this piece will sit on here like so, and this piece will sit on here like so. And then our little decoration, we will pop it under here, and we will tape that down, and we'll have it so it sits like that. So this piece will be swinging in the front, and yeah, we'll just write a note inside to tell the recipient that this can be taken off and hung on their Christmas tree. So now it's a time to assemble everything. Let's go ahead and do that, and then take some of the ephemera from the kit and we can embellish the front of our card. At this point I have my background stuck down, and now I'm going to stick this top and bottom part of the pop-up down. Now you could stick these down first and then slide your pattern paper down in between so that the tabs would actually be behind the pattern paper. And I do a card 3. You'll see I do something very similar, and what I do is I glue the tabs down first and then put the pattern paper down. I think it would look better, but I think it's easier for you to see what I'm doing by doing it this way. So I have the top pop-up and the bottom pop-up in place. You can see I embellished it using the pinstripe peel-offs that we get in this special kit. I have some little glue dots that I have used to stick the ribbon part to the back of our pop-up. I was just faffing and looking and deciding, did I want one of the angels there or the star, and I've gone with the star. And then to embellish the bottom, I'm going to put 3 camels down at the bottom, and they'll symbolize the 3 wise men. And then that is literally that card. And I really do love this pop-up split frame swing card. It's got all those things going for it. But I think it's really cool. I love the sort of circular opening that's there for our little ephemera piece. And I just think it's different. It's really cool. And I know I'd be chuffed to get a card like that. So I hope you'll have a go at making this card. It really isn't too difficult once you have all your bits and pieces got. So that's it. There's the inside and again the outside. Let's move on now to card number 2. For card 2, we will use a 6x6 card base, and this is made using a piece of 12x6 and scoring at 6. You can buy ready-made card bases, but I find they're about 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. So use accordingly if you're using ready-made cards. So with my card base here, I'm going to have this as a top folding card. I generally like to do side folding cards because I find they're more stable when they're set on a mantelpiece or a shelf, but I do sometimes like to do a top folding card, so that's what we'll do for this one. So on top of this, I have made a frame. This frame I've used nesting dies, but you can just cut out a frame yourself. Cut out a piece that measures between 5 3/4 and 5 7/8. That's what my frame gives me, a 5 7/8 by 5 7/8 frame. And I just took a corresponding nesting die that cut for the inside. So you can, you know, cut a piece of card measuring 5 7/8 by 5 7/8 and then come in 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch and then cut out your opening. Or you can use a die. You could use a circular die or an oval die, whatever you like yourself. So behind my frame, I have added some foam tape. Now I haven't added foam tape here. I've just double-sided tape because I want to put some layers behind it, but I will add foam tape to the back of this in a moment. So I have a couple of pieces here. I have a piece of cardstock, and this measures a little over 5.5 by 5.5. That's going to sit behind my frame, like so. And then I have these 2 pieces. This piece is glitter cardstock. It's a non-shed. It's about the width of my frame, and I've come up about 2.5 inches, and then I've just cut a rolling hill. This is going to represent a sandy background, really. This piece then is about 1.5 inches, and again I've done the same with this. It's not as wide as this piece. It's only, let's see, just over 4 3/4. So this piece is going to sit up against the back of my frame, like so. Once I've that stuck on, then I can add foam tape to the back of this. And then this piece will go behind that. So it'll sit on my pattern paper like that. And this will sit then up above it. So it'll allow me to tuck things in behind. That's why I've allowed the depth of the foam tape there. This piece, shout out to my daughter Caitlin, who was using some of my Wink of Stella Gold Sparkle pen and just loved it so much. She coloured in a whole, I think, piece that was literally 5.5 by 5.5 squares. So she was like, I was going to have it as background, Mum, but I changed my mind when she was up recently and did a bit of card making with Callan. So yeah, Caitlin, I'm using your sparkle paper. Anyway, they are our mats and layers for the front. Inside I have this piece of plain white cardstock. It measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I've stamped one of the sentiments from the stamp set. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices. For yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, O hear the angel voices, O night divine, O night when Christ was born. I think that's lovely. I nearly want to break out into song when I read it, but you don't want to hear me sing. And then I stamped the 3 wise men at the bottom. Now, when I stamped this, I used a water-based ink. It was the Harmony Spectrum Noir. Just get that out here. This one. But it kind of had a blurred look, and I kind of didn't like that. So I went back to my VersaFine Clair and I used the smoky, what's it called? Let me see. Morning Mist. And I stamped over them. I had them in my Misty. I had this piece in my Misty, so I was able to stamp over again. And I liked the look that actually gave. So this is going to be on the inside of my card, like that. You can see here as well that I used a piece of ephemera, our little star, because we did get loads of them in the ephemera pack. So that'll be the inside. And then on the outside, I've die cut out this beautiful Star of Bethlehem that we got in this kit. Well, that I got in the kit. It die cuts out and all the little pieces come out. So what I did was I die cut it twice. Once in glitter cardstock and once in a mirror gold cardstock. And you can see where I inlaid the mirror gold cardstock into our glitter cardstock. And I just think it looks lush. I mean, it's a beautiful star. It's the Star of Bethlehem, but I just think when it's paper pieced in, and really it took less than 30 seconds to paper piece this in. I did put a little piece of white cardstock on the back. I punched out a circle. It was a little bit big, so I trimmed it down. I stuck my glitter star onto that and then added glue to the white space and then put the gold cardstock on top. So it was very easy to do. So that's my Bethlehem, Star of Bethlehem. And then I have some ephemera pieces. I have 3 kings, I have a palm tree, and I have this lovely image of the Holy Family in the stable. So we have all our pieces ready now. Let's go ahead and assemble our card. I have my panel glued down on the inside of my card with our sentiment, and I've also glued down the pattern paper to the front of the card. I've stuck down my smaller hill. I've added now the foam tape on top, and once I've that done, I can take the release paper off the foam tape. I'll then add the second larger hill to the back of this. It will stick on to the frame, the foam tape there on the frame. And then I can add some glue to the back of that, and I'll use the collal. And while I'm using that, I'm going to put that around the frame as well. That way, when I go to stick it down, I'll have a little bit of wiggle room, because that foam tape is super sticky, and once it sticks, that's it. So it gives me a little bit of wiggle room to make sure I have my frame on right. Once I've that done, then I'm going to pop down some of the ephemera pieces and decide where I want everything to be. I think I want my Holy Family to be in the center of the card. I was going to kind of have them more to the left, but I like that in the center. So I'm happy with that. I've added a bit of foam tape to my Star of Bethlehem there at the bottom and some liquid glue to the top. And then I'll add some liquid glue behind the stable and I'll glue that down. And then I've added a little bit of foam tape to the right hand side of the palm tree, because it'll be off the frame. And then for my wise men, the first one, I'm going to glue him down onto the glitter background. Then the second one, I'll add a bit of foam tape to the top half of his body, and the same to the third wise man, because they will be lifted up. They'll be set down on our little sandy part, our little rolling hill there at the front, so they just need a piece to level it up. So I have those two there, and you can see I have like the trail of their coat is over the frame, and so is the palm tree, and I like that kind of look. So here we go. Here's our finished card. I just love this. I love the inside as much as the outside, to be honest. Really cool. So that's it. Card 2 is done. Let's move on to card 3. So for card 3, we're going to make a swing card, and this is inspired by Sam from Mixed Up Crafts. This card base measures 12 by 6, and I've scored it at 6, and that'll give us a top folding card. A swing card, generally you want a tent style card base, and to do that I have another piece of cardstock here. This piece measures, it's a little over 5 3/4 because it's going to sit in here, so I've done it so it's just a little bit shy on each side. So 5 7/8, I suppose you could say, by 3 inches. Now you'll see on my piece here, I have it at a different size. I have it by 2, and to be honest, it needs to be by 3. So on the 3-inch side, you need to put that down and score it at 1/2 inch, then at 1.5, and at 2.5. And then accordion fold it like you see me doing here. I have 3 pieces here. 2 are pattern paper and 1 is white cardstock. They all measure 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So I'm actually going to put this one on the inside. This piece is going to go on the front of our card, and then this piece is going to go on the outside on the back of our card. It gives us a place to write our message. You can see here I've stamped the 3 kings. What I did was I stamped this king first using my stamp positioner. Then I stamped that king on a piece of white computer paper. I fussy cut this side of the piece that I did on the computer paper out, and I set that down over this king. Then I took my second king stamp and I stamped that down, and because we had this fussy piece of paper covering here, it looks like as if the second king is behind the first one. And then I did the same again. When I stamped him down, I stamped him again on a piece of computer paper. I fussy cut just around this part of the king, which was very easy. I put that down over him. I put my magnet on top to hold it in place, and then I stamped my third king down. And you can see here, although there isn't a line here, this piece would have come forward. So it just looks as if, you know, they're standing in front of each other. So you can do that, or you can just stamp the 3 one after each other like I've done previously. So this is the piece that'll go on the back of the card. Okay, so we have those looked at. Now the next thing I want to look at is the mechanism that goes inside, which will allow our piece to swing. So I have this little piece here. It measures 3 inches by 1/2 inch. And what I've done is I've scored it at 1/2 inch, 1.5, and 2.5. I've then folded it in half, and I've taken a little punch. You can use one of these or whatever you have in your stash, and I've punched out a little hole through the 2 of them there in the center. These little flaps then on the back, they will fold out. And what we'll do is we'll add a little bit of glue in here. So this piece will be glued closed, and then this piece here will sit astride the score line up here. We'll make sure it's set in the middle. It'll get glued down, and then when this is closed over, this is going to hold our swing part. So onto this piece, I'm going to add this. So this is a piece of acetate. I hope you can see it there. This piece is 1 inch long by 3, it's 1 inch wide by 3 inches long. What I've done then is I've taken a corner rounder and I've rounded off the corners here on one end. The other corners here are still left intact. Then I took my little punch again, and towards the top in the center, I've punched out a hole. You can see the little bits there falling out. So now what we will do is we will take a brad, we will feed it, we'll lay this acetate piece over our mechanism piece. We'll put a brad through here and we'll close the wings at the back, and this will allow our acetate to swing. I'm going to take an ephemera piece then, this piece here, and I'm going to stick this down using double-sided tape, and this will be our piece that'll swing in the background. Okay, speaking of ephemera, I also have a little angel. She's going to decorate the outside front, as well as I've got 3 kings on their camels. I've also got 2 of the palm trees, and I've got the incense. So those will all go on the outside to embellish our card. Now, in order to see through the front of our card into our piece that's going to be swinging, we need to do some die cutting. So what I will do is I will take my panel that's going to go on the front and I will glue this down in place. Once I have this glued in place, I'll then take a die and I'll die cut out an opening, and I'll kind of center it there. So it will die cut through our pattern paper and the front of our card base. To embellish that opening then, I have die cut out this piece. I've taken the next size up in my die, and I'm using these dies for that. I've taken the next size up and I've die cut out a round piece. I've then taken these dies, which are the inverted scalloped nesting dies, and I put that over this piece and I die cut out this opening. So we'll have a lovely detailed frame that'll sit on there on our opening, and we'll be able to see our piece going through. So I have my frame. You can use whatever you have in your stash to make a frame. Again, it doesn't have to be die cut out using a circular die. You can die cut out open a square or a rectangle, or when you have your pattern paper glued down, you can then put it into your trimmer and cut open your opening using a trimmer, or you can take a craft knife and a ruler and cut your opening. This is just how I choose to cut mine. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue down this piece of pattern paper to the front, and I'm going to die cut out my opening. So I'll be back to you in just a minute. So now I've die cut out my opening, and I've made sure that the distance here on either side is the same. And then once I have that done, I can pop my die off, pop my piece out. Lovely. And this can be used on another card as a focal point. So I'll pop that in there. So next what we want to do is I'm going to add this piece in here, and that way I can add my pattern paper. I'm going to use some liquid glue for this, and I'm using my Cosmic Shimmer Quick Grab glue. So I add some to the tab, and I'm going to place that between the left and right hand side and bring it down so it's just near the very bottom. I'm going to add glue to this piece here. I'm going to pop this closed, and while the glue is setting on that, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure across and find my center point. Now you can eyeball it, but I'm generally not very good at eyeballing things. So there is my center point. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit of liquid glue on this piece here. And I'm going to put where this meets here over my score line, and I'm going to make sure that where the middle point is here is in line with the middle point here. What I'll do is I will close my card, and that should close over like so. So now I know this piece is exactly where it needs to be. You can see it's just come down from the score line there because that's where it needs to be. So although we set it over the score line, when the card closes, it finds its natural point that it needs to be at. So now we can close over on our other tab, and then you can see there our pieces in line. Now I'm going to leave that closed just for a minute, and I'm going to let the glue set. Now the glue has set on my mechanism piece, I'm going to add in my pattern paper to my background, and that's this piece here, and it will sit between our mechanism and our tent piece at the bottom. It'll sit in there like so. So I'm going to glue that in place using my Kalal glue. And by doing it this way now, we're going to cover up the tab for our mechanism piece at the top in the middle, and we'll also cover up the tab that is across the bottom. So when you look through the opening, you won't see those tabs. So now I'll pop that in there. I have a nice border either side, but now you can't see our tab here at the bottom, and you can't see our tab. It's underneath the pattern paper there inside, so it just hides it. So it's not that you would see it anyway when the card is closed, but I just think it gives a nice finish when you're looking into the card, and people, when they see a card like this, they're like, oh, that's so cool, how did you make that? So yeah, that's why I like to do that. So now we have this tab here to glue down, but before I do that, I'm going to pop my mechanism in here, and that is our little piece of acetate. So for that now I need a brad, and depending on the size hole you punch will depend on the size brad that you use. So I'm going to take my little brad, pop it through here, pop it through there, and then I'm going to fold over the little legs, and I'm folding them over my pokey tool. So again, it's on the back side here of this little leg, and I'm folding it over there. So rather than them being flat closed, that little bit, you can see there, it allows movement on our acetate piece. So when this is closed over, then it will swing without any problems, just like that. It's kind of hard to show you because when it's lying flat it won't swing, but when it's stood up it does. So now I know you can see the brad here. Don't worry about that because I'm going to cover it up with my little angel. So she'll be here like this, you see, or she can be here like this, and then we'll have our little swinging piece in here. Before we go any further, I'm going to add some liquid glue to our tab, and then I'm going to close over the front of the card, and that will then give us our tent fold for our swing. So you can see there I have about 1 inch of an opening on mine, but with the measurements I gave you, you will have a much bigger opening. It'll be a 2-inch wide opening, which allows the swing mechanism to sit better and everything. It works far better. So I have attached my frame, and now I feel the angel there was too big, so I'm going to stick a Star of Bethlehem down there, and I'm going to just add a piece of white cardstock to the back of this, and then I have a gold one, and I've die cut out a sparkle one, and I'm going to layer them one over the other. You can see me do that there. Perfect. I'll add a little weight to that while I take out the center star, and then put a little glue in there and add my little centerpiece in There was a little tiny piece missing as well from the raise, but it was in my little bowl there. So I have my Star of Bethlehem complete. I'll add a little bit of glue to the top of the star where it's going to attach to the frame, and then the rest of it will be sitting off. So I'm going to take some red liner tape now, and I'm going to add that to the acetate piece. And once I have that done, then I'll be able to stick the large, it's kind of a circular die cut down on top of it. And it's a beautiful image with the Bethlehem in the background, the stable and the three kings on it. I just love this. So I've got the 2 palm trees stuck down, and now I'm gluing down my 3 wise men. You can see here I'm using foam on some of them. This piece has foam and this piece has foam, but the wise man there behind, he's just glued down where he's actually stuck down onto the pattern paper and the frame. So I love that we have a bit of dimension with 2 of the wise men on the front of the card, and it really does look great. It swings nicely. So I thought I'd just pop this little video in for you to see. It's always easier to see it in this orientation than when the camera is looking down on it. And I love the sparkle in our Star of Bethlehem. This then is the back where we have stamped our panel and added that to the back. And I really do love this card. So now let's move on to card number 4. And now we're moving on to card 4. And for card 4, I wanted to have the illusion of looking through a window from inside a house to outside and having a scene go through. So for this, I'll be using some dies from my stash. You can use whatever you have in yours, and I'll give you some options if you don't have dies. So again, I'm going to be using a 6x6 card base, one I've made myself. So it's a piece of 12x6 and scored at 6. Now, for the inside of this card, I have some mats and layers. I have a blue piece of cardstock measuring 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and I have a white piece measuring 5 1/2 by 5 1/2, and I haven't stamped on this yet. I thought we might do that together. On the front of the card, we're going to do something very similar to card 1. So it's a pop-up frame card because our scene is going to be on here. And I just, like I said, I do love this style. I just think I want my Christmas cards to be special. So hence the reason why I'm doing this style again. But we'll have a different style for the next card. Okay, so for the pop-up piece, I have a piece of cardstock and it measures 9 by 6. And on this, I have scored it at 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/2, then 7 1/2, 8 and 8 1/2. We're going to do a mountain fold, a valley fold, and a mountain fold on one side, and then we'll do the same on this side, a mountain fold, a valley fold, and then again a mountain fold, and that'll give us our pop-up just like what we had in card 1, but instead of 2 of them, we're going to have just 1 panel. So now on the front of this, I want to put a piece that looks like wallpaper, because this is going to be the front inside our sitting room, or our front room. We're going to have this piece. So this measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, and I'm going to glue this on here. So for our scene behind, I have a piece of pattern paper. This again measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. I have a die cut piece. This came from when I die cut out my frame for in card 2. I did nesting dies, so I have a 3 1/2 by 3 1/2 die cut here. Now you can see I have some things going on here. I have taken the Good Tidings of Comfort and Joy stamp, and I've stamped that down. Then I've gone around the edge of this in a nice dark blue, and around the bottom I've gone in a kind of a reddish brown color. Now, the reason for that is because I'm going to have some images. First, I'm going to have this small little ephemera piece, and you can see here I've cut across the bottom on this. This is going to sit in here like so. Then onto that, I have one of the little stars that came in the kit and the ephemera pack of some foam tape. That's going to sit up there. Then I've taken 3 of the kings and I have stuck them together using some foam tape. They're going to sit over the front like so. So I'm going to put this panel in the middle here. And then I'm going to take my 3 kings and I'm going to sit them over like that. Now, this is then going to sit on top, and we need to die cut open an opening. So you can take a square die, put it in there, die cut out your opening, then cut 2 little strips like what my window has here and put them behind it, and it'll give you an opening similar to this. I have this window die in my stash, and I'll leave links to everything I can below in the description. This is, let me just see. This one is a Crafter's Companion die. It's the Winter's Tale. It came with a die for the window, as well as on the back we had 2 Christmas trees. So you can see here it's the Signature Collection by Sarah Davis, A Winter's Tale. So it says 4 pieces in it, but I only have 3. So I think I've lost a piece along the way. But yeah, so I get great use out of this little window on a lot of the cards that I make, which are 5x7 or 6x6. So that's, if I can find this, I will link it below, but that's the one I've used. So I'm going to die cut out. I'm going to take my window die and I'm going to die cut it out. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of acetate behind it. So the acetate will go on the back here, and then the window die will just sit into place on here. And then when we look through our window, this is the scene we'll have. Now, because we're going to be in our sitting room looking out the window, I know this isn't necessarily true, but for me, in my head, I have a Christmas tree die in my stash. So what I did was I took the stars that came in this special kit, and I've used the medium and small little stars on it. And then I took these, they're the circles, and they're the glitter circle peel-offs, and I have used the middle and the small size on this. So it'll give the impression that we have our Christmas tree in here and we're looking out our window through to our scene underneath. So that's where I'm going with this card. I hope you like my idea. So it's just a matter now of gluing down our pieces and die cutting out our window. So let's go ahead and do that together. I've put my pattern paper, i.e. my wallpaper, I've glued that down to the panel. I've placed my die down and I've die cut it out, you can see here. And I've also die cut out a white panel. I have a piece of acetate and I have that positioned for the back. I'll use some double-sided tape on that to stick it into place and add pressure. I want to make sure that all the tape has been pressed onto the acetate. I'll give my acetate a clean before I adhere the window to that. And what I'll do is I'll use my Collal glue to glue down my white die cut window. And I'll glue that down onto the panel, the window that we've just die cut out. It'll give a little dimension to the window because it's now 3 layers thick. So that'll be really cool. I'm going to use some double-sided tape. This is like redliner tape, but it's blue. It's just the brand that I have bought. I'll put 3 pieces of this 1/8 inch tape on the window, and then what I'll do is I'll take some double-sided tape. This one is I think it's just under 1/2 inch wide. I'll put some of that across the top and the bottom. So I know that once this then is stuck onto the acetate, it will be well secured, because we're going to put our Christmas tree, it'll kind of overlap over the window. So it's like people from the outside can see our lovely Christmas tree. So I'm going to clean the acetate on this side because it was a little dusty. And now I'm all ready to go to glue that down onto the front of the card. Now I'm going to glue down my Christmas tree, and that then will have this panel for the front of our card all ready to go. Just add some glue to the tabs either side and stick it down to our card. So I have my stamps ready, and in my platform I'm going to use this stamp here and the Holy Family stamp. So I have my piece of 5.5 by 5.5 white cardstock in, and my stamps positioned where I want them. Now I'm going to use the Morning Mist for my Holy Family. And once I have my ink on that, I'm going to then use the Nocturne for my Sentiment. So I'll just carefully make sure I have this all inked up, and then I can pop that down, and I'll use a little bit of pressure. The stamps from Lizi, they are really good, they're great to stamp, and that's perfect, and it doesn't even need a second inking, and that's what I love about the VersaFine Clear inks. They really do give a good impression. So now we have our panel done. I'm just going to glue this onto the blue mat, and I'm going to stick that inside the card. Now I have my panel stuck down inside, and I'm delighted with that. And you can see here I have gone ahead and stuck down our panel on the front and our pattern paper. So what I did was I added some glue to the tabs here, and I stuck these down into place, very like what we did on card 1. Then I took my pattern paper, I put some liquid glue on that, and I slid that down through into place. So it's covering the tabs inside the back there. Then I added my little panel down inside and my 3 kings, and put my Christmas tree over the top. I used some liquid glue to stick that down, and in hindsight I think I might have stuck it over too far. I should have really brought it back another bit so you could see more through the window, but you know, the panel does move from side to side because of the pop-up effect that we have going on. So it will close flat down and go into an envelope. The only bulk here is really on the star. I have a little bit of foam tape on that, but it's a very slim foam tape, so it does flatten down, and I really do love the look of this card. I just, you know, it's lovely, and I do really like the fact that, you know, you're kind of peeking around the Christmas tree to see the Holy Family and Bethlehem in the back. So I hope you liked this card. I didn't go through the whole putting it together because it was very similar to card 1. So now let's move on to card 5, our final card. And for our final card, card 5, we're going to do a wiper card. For this card you need a piece of cardstock measuring 8 by 6. This will give us a 6 by 6 wiper card when we have it made. So I've scored at 1 inch and 2 inch, and that is going to be the left hand side. So we want this to be a valley and then a mountain, just like that. So that's the shape we have there. Then onto this we're going to have this piece, and this piece measures 8 inches by 2.5, and again I've scored it at 1 and 2. And this first score line will become a valley, and then the second score line will become a mountain. So this piece will sit on here like so. I was doubting myself there for a minute, but yeah, sits like that. So when this folds flat, it all sits contained in a 6x6 envelope. So next we have some mats and layers to go on this. So I have a piece of white cardstock measuring 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, a piece of patterned paper measuring 5 1/2 by 5 1/2, and that'll sit in here like so. Then I have this piece which measures 5 3/4 by 2 1/4, and then the pattern paper measures 5 1/2 by 2, and that'll sit on here. Then I have two of these. The white measures 3/4 of an inch by 2 1/4. The pattern paper measures 1/2 an inch by 2 inches, and we have two of those, and they will go in here, one there and one to the side. I have these two pieces. This white measures 3/4 of an inch by 3 1/2, and the pattern paper measures 1/2 an inch by 3 1/4, and I have two of those. They will sit up here and on the inside here. Now you could put a whole long piece down along there if you want, but I'm just going to go with a short piece. If you want to put a long piece in, then you'll need 3 of these instead of 2. The white measures 3/4 of an inch by 5 3/4, and the pattern paper is 1/2 an inch by 5 1/2. You can instead put one of these in along here if you wish, and then the other two will cover the back here and along here. So that's all our mats and layers for our wiper card. The next thing we need is our wiper mechanism. So for that, I'm using a piece of acetate. Now you can use a piece of cardstock if you like, it's up to yourself. There are dies available that you can get for making wiper cards, but I'm showing you how I make it when I don't use my dies. So this piece measures 1 3/4 by 3 inches. Now I hope you can see here, I have a little corner piece here. This corner piece, what I have done is I've taken my acetate, I've put it up here, and I've marked it at 1 inch at the top from the left and 1 inch on the left down. Then I've taken those 2 points, I've put it into my scoreboard, and I have scored through the acetate. Now this is light acetate, and I've bent this over and back quite a lot in order that it's going to fold. Now we need to put some adhesive onto this mechanism, and when you do that, the best way I can tell you to do that is put your piece into your scoreboard where your corner tab is facing the bottom left. Then what I want you to do is flip up that corner piece just there. When you do that, that is the side you want your adhesive on, and I would recommend you use a strong double-sided tape for that. That then will sit in here, and it will be our pop-up mechanism. And I have lots of ephemera here. You can see I have a die cut star, and I'm going to use these to embellish our wiper card. So before I glue down all my mats and layers, I forgot to mention I have a piece of white cardstock. This measures 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. It's going to go on the back. I'll stamp my sentiment and a little image, or maybe use some of the ephemera pieces on this back piece. So I have all my mats and pattern paper glued down into place, and now I've taken this lower front panel and I'm adding some double-sided tape. So I'm just adding the tape onto one part there. You can see the panel there on the left. I have added some double-sided tape on that, and I'm going to stick that down, and I'm lining it up with my panel beneath it. So once this part has been stuck down using some double-sided tape, I can now go ahead and stick in the mechanism. Now for the mechanism, I haven't added any tape onto it yet. I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to use some red liner tape for that. So I'm going to peel off the red liner tape. I'm going to pop down my panel. I'm just making sure all the edges are in. So I'm folding over my panel so the sticky side is now facing the card. And then I'm going to pop that down in place. Now I don't want this bottom left edge coming any further than where that score line is, right under my fingers. So you can see here I'm lining up the edge of the folded over piece so it's nice and level in between our score lines there. I'll add a little pressure to that, and I do like using the red liner tape with the acetate because it sticks straight in place. There's no waiting for glue to dry. Not that I'd use glue with acetate, but if you're using a piece of cardstock for this, I just find using a good strong double-sided tape is really good. So I'm just making sure all the double-sided tape is adhered, and you can see there when we fold our panel down, our little acetate mechanism folds down behind the front panel. So it's a matter now of adding some glue to this tab here on the right hand side, and then we can put the panel down on top of that. So fold those over and then press down so we have our 6x6 card there. And when you open it up, our wiper pops up. Now you can't see it because it's acetate, but it does pop up and it goes down. When you're placing your angel or whatever you're putting on your wiper mechanism, make sure that when the wiper is in the closed position, your piece doesn't show at the bottom of the card. If it shows a little above the top line, we'll say behind where the manger is there, that's fine. You can always cover it up by putting something in front of it, like what I'm going to do. So I have my Star of Bethlehem there, and I'm going to add all my pieces in. You can see now I have them glued down. I've put my angel on my acetate, and I've put my manger piece glued down, and I just added glue to the bottom of that. I've stuck down my first wise man there on the right. He's got some foam tape behind him. The second wise man, he's glued down, and I've just glued the bottom half of that down. And then the third wise man, I'm putting foam tape behind him. So once he's set down, we have our 3 wise men on their way to see the Holy Family. And I'm delighted with that. I'm going to now put my Star of Bethlehem up there, but I want to put a piece of nice yellow cardstock on the back of that so that I think it will pop out the gold colours better on that brown background. Now when hubby came in, he saw the cards and he thought they were all great. He loved them. He's very good. He gives his honest opinion, and he'll also tell me how I should improve them, which sometimes I don't like, but it's all positive. Anyway, he said to me, I love your star, but he said, I think you should have put that on the wiper. So instead of the angel popping up behind the stable, your Star of Bethlehem should have popped up from behind the stable, and maybe put your angel over where you've put your star. So I was looking at it and I thought, you know what? That's really a good idea. You know, the star rising across the sky, leading the wise men to the stable. The storyline, I think it would have made more sense. So yeah, I'm going to pop my angel off the wiper mechanism, and I'm going to take my star off, and I'm going to swap them around. But I mean, that's in hindsight. I'm doing the voiceover now, so it's easy to say that, but that's my plan. I love the idea of the actual star wiping over and back. Anyway, to finish the card, I've used one of the little stars ephemera piece at the top right, and then some of the incense I'll put at the bottom left. And this then will be the finish to card number 5. I did faff around where I was going to put it for a finish, but I thought I'm going to put it right over the Holy Family. So there we go. There is our wiper card, our 6x6 wiper card, and I just love it. I hope you do too. So I hope you've been inspired by the 5 cards I've made. I was very inspired by this kit. I'm not a very religious person, but I know there are certain family members that will really enjoy getting these cards from me at Christmas. I'll leave links to the products down below, especially this special kit on the Love from Lizi website. If you've enjoyed my video, I hope you'll give it a thumbs up. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. And if not, please do click the subscribe button and ding the bell icon so you'll be notified next time I post a new video. It helps my channel to grow when you do that, so please do think of it if you've enjoyed my video. So that's it. I'm going to leave it there, folks. Until next time, take care, stay safe, and happy crafting, everyone. Bye for now.